Hey everyone, this hand today kind of makes my heart speed up a little bit just watching it. Some people believe Flushy plays a little spewy and Linus is the GOAT. I don't know, you guys watch the hand and you decide for yourself. So we start off Flushy versus Linus, $55,000 here in a $100, $200 game. So they're nearly 300 blinds deep. This is a very, very interesting hand, to say the least. And we're going to play as Linus today. And so Flushy goes for the 3x 4-bet, which is really what you should be doing when you're playing deeper poker and you're polarizing your range. Because your opponent, if you go for the standard 2.1, 2.3x or whatever 4-bet, even though you have position, their marginal hands have way more equity realization when you're deep stack. So you want to make those hands a little bit more indifferent and take up the sizing here when you're polarizing. So Linus goes for the call. Nothing too crazy here so far. Could have got a little fun with a little 5-bet click back. And Flushy goes for the half pot sizing. And this is a very like clean, strong board for Flushy. His range, like the heart of his range is like ace queen plus, queens plus. So like just kind of nails it. It's a dry, somewhat relatively disconnected board. And when you're playing deeper stack, another just point here is like, a lot of people bet 1/4. That's like the standard sizing. A lot of people too bet like even smaller, maybe 1/10 of the pot or so. That's pretty standard. You don't see a lot of people leveraging the larger sizings, but it's very, very much a thing when we get deeper. Even at 100 big blinds effective, it can be a thing. But when you're deeper like this, rather than going with the standard B25 range bet, when your range is really strong and you have position like this, you can go ahead and just leverage even a larger bet. So another kind of deep stack concept here, you can just apply pressure when on a weaker range. It's that simple. They just don't have, outside pocket nines, maybe queen nine suited. Really, there's not a lot of nutted hands in Linus's range here, where Flushy, like kings and aces, is basically like the nuts because of that concept, where there's not a lot of like two pair sets in Linus's range. So like, thus Flushy has like this stronger nutted part of the region, can just leverage that. And Linus, I mean, obviously call or raise are both completely fine. I'm sure he's considering his options, maybe just doing a good old RNG. So far the hand's standard-ish, but the turn things get weird very quickly here. And this is where it gets weird. So Linus goes for the donk. So we're in a nearly 300 big blind 4-bet pot, and it goes check bet, half pot, call, and then donks the turn. It's a very obscure spot. Like, I do think this is like a very rare misplay by Linus. I think his rationale makes a lot of sense. Like, a lot of the ingredients you need to develop some sort of donk range is typically you're going to have a decent sized equity edge, which he has checked because Flushy is like betting nearly range in the flop, and then he has a lot of air. Linus doesn't have that air. And of course, if we zoom in on the 9x region, because this is a deep stack pot, even though Flushy goes for the 3x 4-bet, he is going to have 9x in range, and he does have the advantage, but it's not like a huge advantage. Flushy has some 9x, and again, Linus still is a 4-bet pot, so he can't go wild calling all his 9x pre-flop, so he has a little bit of an edge there. But I think the big thing here is like Flushy's like strong, like ace, queen, kings, aces, they retain like a decent amount of equity and a large pot share here still. So like they're very strong and they're still a large part of the range. So I think it's like kind of a struggle to develop some sort of donk range given those ranges. You could, I mean, I don't think Linus is doing some sort of exploit because the defense for Flushy is fairly trivial here. So I don't think he thinks Flushy's going to do something out of line here, would be my guess, one way or the other. So I do think he thinks this is a lead, and really it isn't for the reasons mentioned. So that's kind of interesting. I'm sure Flushy's a little thrown off here, probably not totally expected. But again, Flushy probably thinks it's not like he tanked for a while. He probably does think it's reasonable. And again, like it has like typical ingredients for a donk. It's not like a terrible play. So Flushy just flats, and now we got a jack river. So if you're sitting there with ace queen, it's kind of meh. I mean, now flushy could have some traps like queens. Definitely kings and aces could both be in there. Jacks now gets there. So if you have ace queen, like trying to get another straight of value, really targeting like maybe like a king jack or a pocket tens. And typically you are going to see very polarized situation from Linus, 9x plus kind of shove. But he goes, of course, Linus, like I thought he probably misplayed turn, but the player that he is, and the one thing always watching Linus through the years is this guy, he never misses a value bet. Like I don't know if I've ever seen him miss a value bet, because if you all the reasons I just said are like true in terms of like you want to develop mostly just like a large polarized lead here on the river as played, but there's like this one particular part of the range combo, like ace queen, that can get some value here from hands like king jack, jack 10, potentially weaker queen x, because this is a 4-bet pot, so Asian flushie can have like a hand like queen 5 suited occasionally and stuff like that. So again, it's a very small part, and so Linus just executes perfectly here. I'm pretty sure not many people will go for another street given how this situation is played out with the ace king. But again, he just rarely misses this. It's just why he is the world class, one of the best, if not best players in the world. So Flushy has to be just putting pieces together here and wondering what the heck is going on. So he goes for the shove. And here we are with ace queen. So just to recap really quick here, 4-bet pot, it goes check, bet, call. Linus donks the 9 turn, and then he leads small for thin value river. Now he's facing shove. So the question is, I feel like there's 2 ways to kind of approach Linus's spot right now. You could approach it one in a very like theoretical way. Linus is a smart guy. He knows, he sees this bet that he's got to defend like half his range. Most of his range is this queen x trying to get thin value. He'll have some air that will fold, and then he'll have some traps, whatever it may be, queens or something, some 9x, whatever, in that range as well. So those are calling, air is folding. So if you know you're calling about half your range, you can be like, well, ace queen is probably pretty indifferent, so I'm going to RNG. Or you could use blockers on blockers, but this spot is so obscure to this like very rare type of node that I don't know if you could really nail down how the blockers and unblockers are helping you here, but maybe. But anyways, I think you could do it that way and just go ahead and RNG, kind of like a mixed strategy. The second way is dovetailing off the first way, which basically, if you know your hand's pretty indifferent, this could be an opportunity where you could play technically, theoretically optimal poker and just make sure that you're not getting exploited and go ahead and RNG, or you can use it as an opportunity to gain a huge edge. And because your hand's indifferent, you can make a decision. Now, this spot is so uncommon that you could argue, well, Linus probably doesn't have any blueprint in his head of how flushy plays this exact spot, this 4-bet pot where it goes check, bet, call, and then he donks turn and lays river. But I would argue that you don't need to play this spot to make that decision. What you could do is model in your head how many times you've played this opponent when you went for thin value in a large pot. How likely do you think it is that they are going to bluff this spot or underbluff this spot? I think that's how you can model it if you want to go for more exploitative approach and kind of model it from there, because flushy could turn some jack x into bluff. He could maybe ace king, he could turn into a bluff. But at the same time, it's like, are those hands going to be just more, is the opponent that's just more content with calling or just folding those hands, and then he just basically just takes his jacks, his queens, maybe even aces, and goes for the shove. So again, these are all thoughts probably going into Linus's head here as he's trying to piece this together. I don't pretend to know if he's going to play like a pure theoretical defense here, or if he's going to take the second approach and make a decision on what flushy is doing. And he goes for the call, and Flushie has 10 jack. Wow. 110,000 swinging his way. I think Flushie's got a lot of courage for sure, and a lot of ambition. Now, the interesting part about this is most Flushie's bluffs do come from like King Jack, Jack 10, and like a 4-5 that he randomly has. So he is in that wheelhouse, and he definitely has value here to shove. But the thing is, if Linus is calling here, like I said, we can't conclude what he's doing exactly, but we can conclude that he is at minimum mixing, right? Which that was, like we talked about, that was the theory defense. So we could say at minimum he's defending theory. That's a fact. We can't say he's pure fold. That's obvious, right? So he's doing the theoretical defense at minimum, if not deciding to pure call if he wants to play exploitative here. Because of that, 10 jack, we need to look at blockers and blockers, because Flushie has various 10 jacks, offsuits and suiteds, and typically the shoves come from the ones that are blocking 9x, and Linus can't have the offsuit ones. So like the heart, 10 of hearts and 10 of clubs are much better combos to shove because they're blocking some of that nut part of the region. And it's a small detail that like isn't a huge mistake theory wise. But if you know, if your opponent's at minimum playing theory, if not more, like overcalling, you need to pay attention. So I would make the argument that what's happening here is Flushie is over bluffing. And whether Linus is playing a pure theory or he deviated and maybe mixed a higher number or just pure called, he's going to be making a decent amount of money here, because there's too many combos of 10 jack and king jack and 4-5 and ace 4 that Flushie is going to be over bluffing, because his combo rarely does this, which means he could have mixed either, or he's technically over bluffing. Again, we're using reverse engineering the spot now that we know what Linus has done here, that we can deduce with some confidence that what's happening is Linus is taking advantage of Flushie over bluffing here. So this hand was wild. I mean, this hand was wild because we're 300 big blinds effective, and just like what Linus did on the turn just totally threw everything off on how this hand was going. Because this hand, if Linus doesn't dunk, this could have very well just went check, check, Linus bet river, call, or something like that. Yeah, the point is, I think this hand kicks some ass because it was really cool hand to watch, just very like nuanced spot and how these pros kind of handle it. And I think there's a lot to take away from how to think about this river if you find yourself in these spots when you're facing a shove. And you're going for thin value, because that's a tough spot in poker, right? You know your hand, you're maybe in a 3-bet pot or 4-bet pot, and you know your hand can get some small value. A lot of times people don't do it because they're scared of that shove. And if you're facing the shove, just if you have a good thought process, and if you know your opponent well, that helps too. But if you have a good thought process, just remember you won't get exposed. Like if you're sitting here with Linus, say you're Linus's spot and you happen to take his wild line here, but if you're in his spot and you take that line and you go for the thin value, just have confidence that you can at least defend a theory defense, and that way you would never get exploited, even if you're not sure what Flushie's doing. If you just mix your ace queen, RNG that mixed ace queen, there you go. You can't be exploited. It's beautiful. I hope you guys liked it. I thought this hand was really cool. If you've been liking these hands or the interviews or anything on my channel, if you could like, subscribe, it does help quite a bit so I can keep coming out with these in the future. It also helps for me to understand if you did like this video, I'll make a similar one in the future. So when you like it or comment or something, that helps me shape what I'm going to do in the future. Appreciate it. Happy to answer any comments below, and hope everyone has a great rest of their day. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.